Hello, this is Brett Bumeter. Uh, I'm here with Warren Whitlock, and this is the Zeta Mining Show. This is episode 25, and today we're going to be talking about the future of influence in business. And there's a couple oddball, not really oddball, there's a couple news items out there that sort of relate to what we're talking to. One, Sergey Brin of Google fame, CEO of Google, came out and stated the other day that he thinks Google Plus might have been a mistake. And yesterday, I believe it was, scientists, revealed that a computer for the very first time passed the Turing test. And those aren't exactly topics we're going to be talking about, but they do relate a little bit to this topic of influence in business. Google obviously spent a lot of money trying to figure out how to channel the knowledge of influencers. And I think from some of our pre-interview discussions with Warren and myself, it would seem that you would need a very smart computer to tackle what the human mind is capable of doing to figure out, what is important in dealing with who has influence, how to navigate that in business, and kind of go from there. And Warren, as I kick it off over to you, I will point out to everybody that I am kind of in a paradox type situation myself, because I don't really believe in influencers, because I think everyone has influence. And so I have always been a little neglectful of drinking this Kool-Aid just a bit, although I feel like my business and my professional life in social media would be better if I had done so. So, so how are you doing, Warren?
Yeah, I'm not really here. I have a computer setting in for me today.
You look a little bit
Ask
like
Eliza anything, and Eliza will be happy to tell you, Mr. Turing, that indeed I do exist. I think I believe not only do I go around letting people call me an influencer, I kind of enjoy it. But when somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, you're number 8 on that Forbes list. You're a power influencer," and I'm still not sure what a power social media influencer is by definition, but I'm a little bit more clear on influence in general. That there's just no doubt in my mind. Everybody has influence. It's like denying gravity if you say there's no influence. Now let's get into definitions, and I think that thing that when you want to say there is no influence, that you can't trust that some score is going to tell you who's more influential, that somebody's position necessarily makes them more influential. I think there's a lot to that. Let's go right to the top. The most powerful man in the world, the president, can get something.
I thought you were going to say Charlie Sheen there for a minute.
Well, winning. What is it, 3? Does that make it 7?
Yeah, I don't even remember now.
And Tiger blood go. And so when a president wants to get something done, he's got influence because he's got a big red button on his desk. So there's certainly some ways he can make something happen. And but I kind of am with you on that that's not real influence, that's power. So where the influence comes in is how you get stuff done without using the button. And in a political situation, the whole reason we have government is that some people with guns say that we should. If the people with guns say it should not be a democracy, it's no longer a democracy. And so let's not get off on that part of things.
It raises the topic that there are opportunities for bad influence, and as people get siloed into their own conversations, sometimes you can get pigeonholed into topics through people that have influenced you. Yeah. That's not the type of influence we're talking about here.
Let's get back to influence in business, and I don't think power is influence. I think so there are some people, which is weird because again, they call me a power influencer, and I guess my better self, when I'm very sincere when I say I'm ranked as being an influencer because I know a lot of influential people. And some of those influential people don't have high clout scores. It's like it doesn't matter. But when something needs to get done, I know where to go to get it done. And part of that is like, okay, great, I got a big Rolodex. And then part of it is I understand about persuasion. I know that people will do things if it's in their best interest, and showing them that. So
I would mention,
what?
just for our listeners or viewers that may not know, you have a big Rolodex, but you
Right.
also have a very smart and organized Rolodex. You use some very strong and powerful tools to to
Yeah.
keep things organized, so that you know when the right time to approach somebody is,
Well,
or you keep up with people a whole lot better than I do. It's
right.
definitely
Well,
one
so
of your strengths.
when we were talking about this before, and this the topic that keeps coming up again and again. Can you imagine two friends talking about whether influence exists, and one of them has this big fat label, and the other one thinks that he's different on this, and I just kind of say that when you hang out with somebody, that's going to be influence. There's the saying that you are the sum of the five people you hang out with most. And hey, that's why I'm in the hangout. I want to be more like you. At times I think of things I could do to help you, which would be to influence you. And you know what? Actually, a saying I learned about how to actually lead people
Mhm.
came up, and it's that the power is not the way to do it. The way to get something done is with persuasion. I like persuasion better than influence as a word to focus on, because persuasion means, yeah, I can do something to change the world, and I can do that in a way that makes it. But I found that usually is, let's see, let me go back to the source. It's was saying, be kind, long suffering, show
Mhm.
people that you're a true friend. And so when I look at that, it's like, well, wait a minute, that's how you get influence. You take care of people. You see that, you know, if you start focusing on, I've got the big red button and I'm more influential than you, then you're not really influential. That's just raw power. And the interesting thing about all that is it was taught to me as if you do go the road of saying, I am larger than you, so I can tell you what to do. I have a gun, so I can tell you what to do. I have a powerful position of authority, and I can tell you what to do. That the end of that is generally that you don't get what you want in the end. You're always left frustrated, because I think somewhere in your mind you have you have an idea that I didn't really deserve this. And kind of the same thing you're saying. Your struggle is that there's still that idea of, well, could I get this done if I didn't have the gun? A great line from the movie Grand Canyon, when Danny Glover is coming to rescue. He's driving a tow truck and picking up the Kevin Kline character, and who is the richer guy in a BMW, and he's in a bad part of town, and as they are there is a gang show up, and the gang leader gets into it talking with Danny Glover's character and says, "Do you respect me because of the gun or because it's me?"
Right.
And Glover's response is, "I just want to go home."
Well,
And really, at the end of the day, that's what we all want. I mean, we all want to get what we want, but as we grow, we find out that getting what we want is all a function of helping somebody else get what they want. And to me, that's what influence is. And so if I can help a whole lot of people get what they want, I know I'm gonna get everything I need. If I focus on what I need, I may not be helping people as much as I could, and that's a problem. So to me, it's a lifelong struggle of trying to help other people rather than be influencing. How do you use that in business? You think in every situation, how can I help somebody get what they want? Find out what they want, get it for them, and expect them to come back for more. If you
I
if
agree.
you
One
start,
of the early lessons I learned just as an employee, and I've been working for myself for quite a long time now, but as an employee, the best way to get promoted as an employee is to find somebody to replace you. You need to backfill your own position such that when you go to your boss and say, hey, I want this other job, your boss isn't stuck with this big vacancy. If you can solve the problem before they even know they have it, you can fill your job with somebody else, and then it's easier for you to move on up to the next position. Otherwise, you get stuck in bureaucratic HR rules where you have to stay in a job for X number of months and yada, yada, yada. But that's just on the employee side. From a business perspective, we hear a lot about people asking, should I advertise with an influencer? Or do influencers have sway over the people they influence? And therefore, should I take my advertising dollars to them and do different things? And I'm kind of curious what your perspective is when it comes to ad money and how that gets bounced around and the right and the wrong ways of.
well, the short answer is go to that Forbes list and find number 8 and call him and spend all your money. Oh, that's me. No, but
Right.
I've
Solve that
done
problem, Warren, and
I have done campaigns that are very much that, sold on the strength of I know who to contact and what to do. And the first thing we do when we're trying to influence, when we're trying to get a message out is, well, actually the very first thing is to make sure that the message is one that's worth sharing. But, let's skip that and say, so I have a message. My widget is the best widget ever made, and your life streams will come true with this widget. And I would like very much for the guy who talks to 1 million people every day on his blog to feature that product and talk about it. So 2 things come to play. The more philosophical definition we talked about says that I want to see that I take care of what that person needs. And the other one is that, the volume makes some kind of a difference. In the mass century, in, last 100 years, in 20th century, you could do really well with building a great big tower and reaching more people. People would buy their radio or their TV and tune it into your station. And if you had the clearest signal and, and a big budget for pumping it out wider and hooking up with the next signal and buying the printing press and printing a paper, that's when you won. It's changing so that now, I think really what we agree on is that that any person can be in that position now. So the fact that somebody went out and gained 100,000, 10,000, 2,000, no thousands of readers doesn't make them have influence. You can't look at the number of followers I have on Twitter and say I have more influence than the guy who has half as many. It doesn't work that way. It works like who trusts what I have to say. In business we learned early on that people buy from who they know, like, and trust. Well, in the old days, that was, the 3 networks that could beam into every house. It's not that way now. There's different voices. There's diversity. There's people with competing messages. And so in the old days, it was, can I get a bigger budget than my competitor and reach more people? I would hold today most businesses aren't looking to reach everybody. They're looking to reach the people that are clamoring to buy, which, I guess the marketing meme we talk about is if you had a glass of water in the desert, everybody would be your friend.
Right. And I think that speaks a little bit to maybe Sergey Brin's Google Plus may have been a mistake concept, because I think in part they did something right with Google Plus, and in part I think they did make a mistake. Yeah. I think the part is I do find useful things on Google Plus when I'm in the right circles looking for those things, and I think Google Plus is in some ways more powerful, although not as built out as well as Facebook. However, I find it very distracting and extremely annoying when I see things in my Google search results that are put there only because I happen to have somebody in my circles who I may not necessarily, feel really holds any sway in pushing something up above what might be the right answer in a Google search result. So,
well, of course, Google as a search engine, their job is to figure out what would make the best result for you, and then try to deliver it. And that's what they started out with, and I think that's still in their goals. So, I don't get why he's saying that Google Plus was a mistake. To me, Google Plus is a series of many mistakes. There's a
they
lot.
definitely made a lot of
There's a
mistakes.
lot of mistakes with it. That's So and again, he's got an influential position, which say he earned. Is the world set up right that he has billions of dollars because Google's a good thing? I don't know. We're not here to try to figure
that gets
that
back
out.
into the power.
But we do know that if he stands up and says Google Plus was a mistake, we pay attention because he has that kind of influence. Power he doesn't have. I mean, technically he could decide he was going to shut you or me off of Google services, and this show wouldn't happen without the free service that his
We're
company
running
is
on the
offering.
Google Plus tool right now, Google
So
Hangout.
yes, we like you, Mr. Britt.
Don't shut off Google Plus yet.
But yeah, don't shut it off during the middle of our broadcast. So yeah, I get that he could say there was mistakes, but how do you decide the whole thing was a mistake? It's too complicated. One of the tenets of how they built Google Plus was to integrate it into everything that they do, that you now have a common login. And after all the griping I've done about the way I had to log into things before to Google, how messed up it was during the transition, truth is most of my devices, I pick them up and it's got, I'm logged in right for Google.
I like it for devices, although I have now 7 or 8 Google Plus accounts, which I find to be annoying. So I've got 3 Google accounts, and then I have 3 or 4 other Google Plus things that are linked in with those. And I find it trying to figure out which one I need to toggle between gets a little tedious.
Well,
but we're off the topic of influence when we're
exactly.
getting into Google.
What I'm saying is that they came up with that, and they were putting all of that into everything that they did. So it's like saying we have, it's not that they just have steered the ship in another direction. They've overhauled the whole ship while it's sailing. Yeah. And so what is it? I think those cues, the influence, it's there. Something influences you. It is very common. I learned from when I first started studying advertising, it is very common for people to think they're immune to advertising. Yet we live in a world with thousands of messages a day coming out. We try to protect our kids from getting over advertised. We worry about whether or not gun violence comes from somebody playing the right. I mean, we know that there's influential factors there. So people's lives are changed every day by interacting with other people. And I really say that to sum up life is connections and those relationships, and then the stories that we share. And what Google overall hasn't been able to do is the story sharing thing, which, like when you say that you go to, because you followed somebody or circled them on Google Plus, now that they change what you see as search engine results. And really what it is they become they're a piece of the story of your life because you circled them. I mean, you made that conscious decision to push the button.
In some regards, their algorithm is imperfect in that they give too much weight to people in my circles. Almost like if I were still an employee, I might work with somebody, but they might be a loon. I didn't hire them; I just work with them. But
yeah, and again, that's why they went with circles instead of friends like Facebook. But the thing is, that person that you work with that you can't stand does have influence on you. Using your definition of every person has influence.
They've got some, but I wouldn't necessarily trust their opinion to go buy something, maybe.
Right, but is the sharing of stories and the moving forward of life and progress, or whatever you want to call this journey we're on, all of us seeking our goals, is that really something where, trying to get somebody to buy something. Yeah, if you want a pure capitalist, how do I make people buy stuff? Well, then the whole celebrity culture of, if I can get the rock star to hold it up on stage, people are going to think that's cool. If I can get the actress to appear in my gown at the Academy Awards, people are going to think I'm cool. And I'm not doing that to sell more copies of that gown because it's been worn once. I'm doing that to establish myself as somebody who you can buy my material. It's very odd that I chose a fashion reference, but we'll live with that.
I would like to quote somebody who's had a little bit of influence on me that I've actually chosen to have a little bit of influence. They state that you should always ask the question, who is influencing your customers? And this person also, like yourself, happens to be number 8 on that Forbes list.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, it is you.
Oh, yeah.
But my point is...
Good. We didn't set out to mention the Forbes list, and somehow we've managed to bring it up 4 times. And thank you very much for that.
But your point is, we should ask who is influencing our customers. And I think in mentioning, gowns on the red carpet, things like that, they're putting those gowns on actresses, maybe a couple actors, for the influence that they have over people. And sometimes it's knockoff designers or different chains. There's a whole trickle-down thing that happens in that particular scenario. Right. And I think in those cases, those actresses do have influence on that particular area, but I don't necessarily think that they have influence on other things. So I think you mentioned that it's important for someone to have something important to say when they are trying to get a message out, but I think it's also important that the type of influence a person has. You're not necessarily, if you put if you hand them a placard or something and they walk down the red carpet holding up a sign, that may not necessarily generate the right message. The gown might get people to buy knockoff dresses or gowns, but it's
what you're saying
only goes in certain directions. I think.
What you're talking about there is that having the wrong message can be misconstrued, it can be messed up, can be all sorts of problems. Remember, I was listening to NPR talk to somebody who was going to display at the Academy Awards, and they had paid a fee to have a copy of their product put into every bag for the Academy Awards. And it had something to do with, it was a kitchen device, better keep your drains unclogged or something like that. And I'm thinking...
We did that all the time at Motorola when I worked for Motorola, putting cell phones in gift bags of all sorts of different people. Yep.
Right. So, and I try to think it through from what's going on there. Somebody scrapes together what money they can as a small business to try to make that kind of impact. It's not for me to say that that's going to not work, but I'm just trying to think now. I've got the celebrity who's in a gown who probably never goes into her kitchen. She's got a bag, and in it she's got something that unclogs her drain. I'm thinking like maybe not the right kind of timing. If it works, if one person decides it's cool and it appears on a TV show or somebody mentions it in a big network interview or something, that could still work. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have the trouble you speak of. Is that right? Should that be, is the right combination going to come together? Is Google going to get the algorithm right? Are they going to get too invasive and bother me? And, to me, it's more fundamental. The average business, the average viewer of our podcast is going to be thinking, well, wait a minute, what does this have to do with me selling more of my widgets?
And we're kind of in the influence topic of product placement. And I think product placement does, it can be effective at placing products just because people are able to envision themselves using that product because they see somebody else and they're in a story and they're they're rationalizing, I could be in this story and I could be using that phone or drinking that Coke or
sure.
The reason there's the type of influence where people talk about things, right?
The reason I like product placement is it means that we can do something other than sit through boring ads. This show brought to you by, oh, I'll be right back. Let me do an ad. Let me do an ad. Now on the Forbes list.
Right. I agree. I would
we don't need interruption.
Seamless product placements as opposed to ads.
Right. No one's questioned what Forbes' intentions for me bringing them up 6 times in this program.
Right. But if Tyrion Lannister breaks out a smartphone on Game of Thrones, I'm going to be pissed. Just
yeah. And so I think that is exactly the same thing. It's about making sure that it's appropriate. So, when I try to work with somebody and figure out what their goals are and how to get a message across, I think of it as being like you just got a diagnosis from the doctor. Your kid's got problems, and you go home and there's a Post-it note on the door saying, "Heard the news. I'm here to help. Signed, a trusted friend," whoever they are. Not a company saying they're a trusted friend, but your neighbor, the person you know. Oh, thank goodness that person's going to be there for me. If that person recommends a product, read a book, watch a video, do anything, you're going to listen to them. We use the iPad example.
In the pre-interview, we talked about what I would kind of call the Leo Laporte paradox, in that we both listen to iPad Today. It's a show on the Twit network from Leo Laporte. He used to do the Screensavers show. And I listen to it myself because I like to use them as a bit of a filter to learn and hear about new apps that I might be interested in. And I cherry pick which episode I don't listen to all the episodes, but I listen to a lot of them. And I pick the episodes based on what apps sound like they might be interesting to hear about. Now, I kind of view it as, I don't really view Leo or Sarah, the host of that show, as having influence over me in the apps that I buy. I'm listening to the show because I know they're going to present the topic, and I just think they, I do like Leo. I've met him, and some of his speeches have been influential over me, but I don't view him, if he says go buy this app, I'm not necessarily going to do it. When he has ads on his other shows, I don't necessarily go out and buy the products that his ads show. I do wish him all the success in the world, not to knock his advertisers, but so I kind of view it as this weird paradox. He wouldn't have that show, though, if he didn't have some influence.
Right. Well, and the thing is, it ratchets. He had enough, brains, talent, ability to get himself on a show and do a poor job, but was a likable guy, and then got better and better and better. I really enjoyed when he first did Tech TV and seemed to be not quite sure what he was doing there. And I believe he's told a story that he didn't intend to be on, at first. And and I think that's it's a quality I certainly bring to the show, acting like I didn't prepare to be here. But let's think about it. That it's what you're saying is you're not going to buy from an ad or from Leo is the same thing we've been talking about. You are. It's been proven again and again. Every person sometime in their life has bought an advertised product. It's hard to avoid that. Now, would you have bought the same products if we did away with all ads? Rio de Janeiro is that it, or is it Brasilia? Anyway, either the biggest city or the capital of Brazil has passed a law, no more outdoor advertising, and just taken everything down, put companies out of business that sold those type of things, made some interesting views, and sometimes you take a sign off of a wall and then you got an ugly wall. And sometimes you got something interesting. And then somebody wants to put up art. Is that not advertising the artist, So it opens up that whole discussion. And still, though, people have to find out about things. If I have the great new drain cleaner, somebody should be finding out about it. I hold that maybe for the drain cleaner, it would be better for plumbers and people who work in kitchens to talk about it. Now, I won't say mommy bloggers because I don't want to infer that mothers should be in the kitchen more. I'll go after daddy bloggers. There we go.
Right.
But at any rate, I want that message to go where it can be heard. If I know that I have an iPad app and I can get Leo Laporte to review it, then I'm using Leo Laporte's position to influence you, and you don't even know about it. And that's not a bad thing. That's just how the world, that's how the world works. You wouldn't, and of course, then my trump card on that is if I tell you about an iPad app and tell you that it's better than what Leo recommended, the fact that we are coworkers brings that up. And that's where I get back to saying even a coworker you hate might wind up influence you in ways that you just don't even know.
And away or something, yeah.
Well, let's think about this.
Sometimes, if they relate a story, could be a coworker that has a drain problem, and they explain how they couldn't fix it, and they did dumb thing after dumb thing after dumb thing, and then finally they got the right drain cleaner. I might notice and realize, yeah, they should have got the right drain cleaner right away. Or
that becomes a story, and that's what makes it interesting. I recently went to an event. And there was one person that, made me look like a quiet mole in the corner. He had an opinion on everything, was telling him it, and there was an influential person in the room that I wanted to meet just because I found him interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He has some influence. Actually, in that group, he did. I'm trying to think of my day-to-day life, not much. But I found the guy interesting, and I was bored. I checked my email. The program hadn't started. It was a networking time, and there was 4 people around this guy, and I absolutely avoided going over there because I didn't want to engage with the guy that was going to, take me down some road of, why the Holocaust caused, the deaths to be arranged in a certain order. Something totally random and making no sense to me, nor and I'm going to be end up sitting by that guy at lunch if I talk to him, and that was so. I can't think of a more annoying character in recent life. What happened is I waited until that guy was gone, went and talked to the influencer guy, who then had a couple other people with him. I was then the loudmouth telling stories, and the guy was glad that I was talking to him. And I found myself telling some story that was, again, off topic, much like this one, and trying to make some kind of a point, and then just, rambling and telling stories and joy. We had kids of a similar age, and, how long had he lived in Las Vegas, and blah, 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 kind of stuff that really that on the surface didn't matter, but created some kind of a bond between us. We haven't got together and decided we're, blood brothers, fast friends, and going to go into business together or anything like that. But I was able to bond with that person. Now, if I'd have done what my first reaction was, leave the room, I wouldn't have had that experience at all. And so that person, the loudmouth, is an influencer whether I want him to be or not. He actually, when I first heard him talking, the couple of sentences I heard first, I'm like, well, that sounds like something. And then, I went about my business, whatever, finding my chair. And, and then very soon after, I could see that they were avoiding this guy.
Right. We talked about visual hacks a couple weeks on a previous episode. I think it was 22 or something like that. But, we are, for all intents and purposes, humans can be, for lack of a better word, being very generic. We can be manipulated by scenarios and people, and the people influencing us around us. And I don't mean manipulated and they're pushing your buttons and making you, but we all have an impact on each other, and that might change the course of what we do or don't do, and we don't always recognize it when it's happening.
It could be that the jerk at work that you try to avoid, and so you take a little bit longer route to the lunchroom, is the reason why you bumped into the love of your life. You just the whole butterfly effect kind of thing. So when we start to say that we're not influenced, and if there's some way to sum all this up, when we start to worry about whether we're influenced or influenced right or something like that, we're asking the wrong question. I really think the question is, there is a circle of influence. There are connections that do all these kind of things. Are we using them to the advantage of our business? Are we attempting to manipulate, which is if I buy enough ads, I can overcome people not wanting to see them? You know, or can I hit you over the head with this? How about we do this? How about we get somebody that has to opt in? We offer them a pot of gold if they'll give us their name and email address and credentials for Facebook. And then we're just going to slam them with a bunch of ads. Well, we know that doesn't work. That's spammy. You know, right. Probably technically what I said was spam.
There's no influence in that, right?
But and the gold, they'll forget about it.
People out.
Right, and so using tricks to manipulate people works at some level. And you know, no show on influence would be complete without me mentioning my mentor, Robert Cialdini, Cialdini, and his book Influence: The Science of Persuasion. You know, when he talks about things that are influencers, the guy put research into it for years. When we first interviewed him and wanted to know, because I had heard that he didn't write the book to help marketers influence people more. And he says, absolutely not. I'm a scientist. I figured that at least half of the people that I talked to about the book would be consumer advocates or people worried about how to deprogram somebody that had been programmed and, you know, other things like that, because he talks about all those kind of things. And he says, but actually, no, 1 million copies sold, most of them to people that are trying to influence other people. So if you're concerned about how you're influenced, learn enough about it so that you can tell the difference. That was his mission in that book, which I highly recommend. And I think that the more that I get to know people that have been very successful and having some kind of influence, if it's not the luck of a draw and their technology won out and, you know, went viral, and it's almost always that they are serving people in some way, and really they do care about that. The robber barons in the smoke-filled room deciding what's going to happen in the world, they'd like to have that much influence, but what it really boils down to is that, you know, your dog's going to influence you as to whether or not he barks while we're recording a show, and, you know, whether or not you change something. And, you know, everything has gravity and pulls on everything else, and influence is the way we talk about it in human encounters. So,
great. Well, I think that's we're kind of hitting that 45-minute mark or so. I think that's probably a good place to wrap things up.
yeah.
I think that's enlightened me quite a bit. We've learned and talked quite a bit about, you know, getting things in the right channels, getting things to the right people at the right times, and, you know, not sending left curves out to those influencers, things that
right. And of course the bottom line is I've learned not to use the word influence when trying to influence you to talk about this topic.
That probably is a sound.
It by itself has baggage. It has meaning. It has stories behind it. And next time we'll share some more stories and hope that you share these stories with others.
Right. No, actually, hang on. Let me get as we're wrapping up the show, please check us out on YouTube, Zeta Mining on YouTube. That's our username. Find us, subscribe to this video, share it if you found it useful, and maybe you'll have a little bit of influence helping someone else out down the stream. Thanks a lot, everybody.